I love the fall. Fresh, crisp, cool nights with the smell of campfires and burning leaves. The kids are back in school, and holidays are on their way. Of course, with Halloween and Thanksgiving around the bend, we can't forget about pumpkins. Boy, do I love pumpkins, especially anything flavored like pumpkin. Okay, I'm kidding. I just don't get the whole pumpkin spice thing. I enjoy a good slice of Thanksgiving pie, but pumpkin spice coffee or pumpkin potato chips, that's just terrible. What is it about this squash that makes people all warm and squishy?
While food and beverage makers have been jamming pumpkin in pretty much everything they can sell, thankfully I haven't seen any pumpkin spice wine yet. But there are a ton of beers on the market with this flavor, so I figured I'd give myself a little challenge to see if there are any good pumpkin-based brews out there, and if so, what makes them enjoyable.
Pumpkin beer has been made for centuries. Back in the old days, brewers would just add pumpkin pulp or even whole pumpkins right into the brew kettle. These days, autumnal beers may contain artificial flavors, real pumpkins, or sometimes no pumpkins at all. Instead, just a hint of spices like cloves or cinnamon.
I bought 10 different kinds of beer from my local store, ranging in price and quality, and applied my wine tasting acumen to draw some conclusions. If anything, it was interesting to see how each brewery approached the idea of a pumpkin beer. I started with Shipyard's Pumpkinhead, which was light with a faint hint of pumpkin. It was off-dry and somewhat watery to me, with almost no spice. The Blue Point was a little darker and much sweeter and had some nice hints of squash and spice on the nose, but I thought it was still a little too watery. The Weyerbacher looked good at first, but disappointed with a strange yeasty note and a sour hoppy finish. Harpoon's UFO turned out to be one of the more interesting offerings, with an authentic roasted squash scent and a nice toasty finish. I thought the Dogfish was pretty well done and nicely balanced with squash and pumpkin flavors, but a malt and caramel finish on it too. The Woodchuck seasonal cider really rained on my little tasting parade. Unfortunately, it just tasted like really super sweet apple cider. Looks like it's time to move the festivities inside. Southern Tier's Pumpkin turned out to be more complex than most, with a nose of roasted pumpkin and caramel, and malty notes, with lots of mineral smoke, caramel and vanilla, and even creme brulee.
Not bad.
Sam Adams' Fat Jack looked beautiful in the glass, but didn't really do too much on the nose or the palate. Neshaminy Creek's Punkle Dunkle was one of the more complex beers that I had, but with a lot of spices in it, it tasted more like apple pie to me. And lastly came Heavy Seas Greater Pumpkin. This is aged in a bourbon barrel, and you could definitely tell the complexity was there with notes of vanilla, spice, cinnamon, and a nice roasted pumpkin flavor.
So here's what I learned. For me, I still don't like that pumpkin flavor too much, especially not in something I'm drinking. It just doesn't seem to sit right. But if you're going to have it in there, the best examples seem to be a good balance of like a roasted pumpkin flavor, a hint of spice, and not too much sweetness. These over here seem to me trying to be too much like dessert in a glass. I prefer something a little more complex, kind of like a wine, where it's balanced. For example, this Greater Pumpkin here was nice and malty, and it has a bourbon barrel aging, which makes it nice and vanilla flavor too. And this one here, the Southern Tier, which I was the most skeptical of, actually probably the most complex and balanced, and I like that the best because it's got creme brulee and vanilla, a hint of pumpkin, doesn't overdo it on the spices, but still, I don't think I can drink any more than 1 or 2 glasses of any of these things here. Man, drinking all that beer has got me feeling a little tired, so if you'll excuse me now, I feel like the appropriate thing to do is unbuckle my belt, sit back and fall asleep on the couch while I watch some football. Got to give my stomach some time to make room for dessert. I hear we're having pumpkin pie.